So previously I did videos part 1 and 2 building an amplifier control rack, and it was there that I revealed a new addition to my small amplifier collection, that being the Vox AC15 custom series amplifier head. Hello viewer, my name's Stu, welcome to the channel and my guitar journey. And once again, my opinions, they are my own, and I'm not being paid to mention any of the equipment that I speak about here. So please do think about giving a thumbs up, subscribing, do comment below and share. And if you like the content, it all helps those channel algorithms. So I'll be doing a general overview and test of this Vox AC15 amplifier head and some thoughts on why this has found its way into my custom build amplifier control rack. So, coming up, number 1, the amplifier and its specifications. Number 2, general tones via single coil and humbuckers. Number 3, reasons why a modern day build Vox has been given a place on my amp rack. And number 4, conclusion, final remarks. So without further ado, number 1, and yes, that doorbell rang once again, signalling the arrival of a largish cardboard box. And as is fairly typical when ordering a valve amplifier, this particular amp came reasonably well packed and boxed, and here you can see the Vox AC15 custom series amplifier head. Now Vox amps are of course unmistakable in their looks with that classic diamond designed grille cover and that big chunky Vox logo. Now originally manufactured in the UK and released in 1958, this particular 2016 model is designed still in the UK, but it's now made in China. So weight-wise, well, it comes in around about 15 kilograms, so it's fairly hefty. And as you can see, it's covered in this typical black Tolex with the protective corner pieces, a sturdy carry handle and a couple of air vents on the top side of the amp. Now inside are EL84 tubes with a power output of 15 watts with 16 and 8 ohm settings available. Looking down on the top of the amp from left to right, we have a on-off and standby toggle switches. We have the master volume and tone cut. We've got the tremolo, depth and speed. We have reverb and a control level. The top boost channel with bass, treble and volume, and that connects to the master volume and tone cut controls. And we have the normal channel with volume, and that connects to the master volume and tone cut controls. And finally, the 1/4" jack socket inputs to choose either the top boost or normal channels. Now turning to the back of the amplifier, you can see quite a number of cooling vents, and from left to right, 2 speaker outputs for either 16 or 8 ohm selection with a switch button to make those changes. And below that we have an inbuilt reactive attenuator with 3 settings, 15 watt, 1.5 watt and a 1/6 of a watt. Now an important note, which has caught some folks out who, well, I'm afraid you've not really read the data sheet on the website before you purchased. The inbuilt attenuator does not operate in the 8 ohm setting, so you do need a 16 ohm speaker to be able to use the inbuilt attenuator. And moving along to the right, you've got a foot switch jack for an optional reverb tremolo foot switch, and finally a standard main socket. So number 2, how does it all sound? So just for clarification, when using this amplifier, I'm going to actually be using some different speakers for my recording projects. But in this test, I'm using a neodymium creamback 16 ohm speaker. Now I'm going to be using a Telecaster 52 with Blackguard pickups and a Gibson ES 339 with classic humbuckers, and I'll do a test to see how good that inbuilt attenuator is. So first up, the clean channel. And now over to the dirt channel, 15 watts. .5 watts. Sixth of a watt. .5 watts. 1.5 watts. So just a very basic overview and a general tone test to give you an idea of what this amplifier does. And again, everyone has different needs or wants and uses different guitars, pedals and speaker cabs, let alone the different styles of playing and so on. And all of this, of course, has a bearing on the end results. So that leads me on to number 3, reasons why Vox has been given a place on my amp rack. Every amplifier in my control rack has a very distinctive tone. They're very different from each other. And for me, that's what I'm looking for. Choices at my fingertips, because I need tonal choices depending on the music project that I'm writing. Now, when it comes to Vox amplifiers, my first interaction came when I was just starting out learning guitar in the early 1970s, and a friend of the family who played in bars and clubs, he gave me a loan of his Vox AC30 combo. Now, my first electric guitar was actually a Japanese copy of a Telecaster, and playing clean tones through that AC30, it just sounded absolutely beautiful, particularly to my ears. Now, I'd never considered cranking the amp up to get distorted tones because, well, at that time, I wasn't really aware of doing such things, particularly at the point of where I was learning guitar. And to be frank, besides that, the volume was already seriously loud, and I was warned by my parents not to make too much noise or it was going. Anyhow, it just sounded fabulous, and certainly so much better than the little cheap practice amp that I was paying up from my mother's catalogue. So the other thing that struck me about this monster of an amplifier, it sounded like it was going to explode every time I switched it on. You could almost feel the energy radiating from this box. It had that valve amplifier smell. And another thing I well remember, it weighed a ton. So that's my earliest memory of Vox. But despite that, it being a good memory, it would be Marshall that would become my favourite weapon of choice. Although I did have a couple of friends who used Vox A30s and they did sound great. Now, when I came back to playing a few years ago, Marshall, Fender and Vox were, of course, at the top of my list to get back into and try out. And having tried quite a few amplifiers now, I've settled on what I like for my songwriting, and that being Bad Cat and Marshall. Now, when it comes to the Vox, I do have a specific role for that amplifier in mind for my recording projects, and I hope to be able to share that in due course. So you'll hear the amplifier in context, so to speak. I sometimes feel these kind of tests, they don't really show you how an amp fits into an actual musical product. So number 4, conclusion, final remarks. Is it as good as I remember? Well, that was a long time ago, but without doubt, it's got that Vox sound that I do remember very fondly. And so yes, I really do enjoy the punchy tone that you get from this amplifier. But I would say you do need to play it really at a fairly decent volume to bring out that tight, punchy valve sound. So thinking about that inbuilt attenuator to help manage the volume. Generally speaking, I'm not really a fan of these inbuilt attenuators. They often remove some of the depth of tone from an amplifier. However, the 1.5 watt setting is actually pretty good. Yes, you need to alter the tone settings on the amp to balance out the volume drop and the way the output has been kind of compressed. But I have to say it's really, really good. I'm not a fan of the 6 watt setting. Even with resetting the EQ, I feel the tone loss is just something, well, I wouldn't use it for recording. But if you wanted to practice in your bedroom or in your small flat, then perfect. Yes, it will keep the volume down for you and still give you loads of distortion if you want it. As I say, for recording, I would never use that output setting. So, in many respects, Fender, Marshall and Vox, they're really no different from each other. The valves need to be pushed to get the best out of these amplifiers. And of course, these iconic brands, they are often used and seen as a benchmark for comparing tone when looking at the huge choice of amplifiers that are out there. And just like various guitars, such as the Telecaster, Stratocaster, Les Paul, etc., they all have their own vibe. So it is with amplifiers and speaker combinations. In the 70s, where money was really tight, it was normal to own only one amplifier. And because of that, you had to try and make that particular choice of amplifier do different things. Today, things are so different. Just as many folks, they own dozens of guitars at a time. So it is that collecting amplifiers is also commonplace. So Vox is often also thought of as being harsh or brittle sounding, and sure, it's easy to get an edgy tone, but the amplifier is well capable of mellower tones. The controls require getting used to, and you really do have to take your time to discover the various tones that you can get, along with the way you personally interact with it and your guitar volume and tone settings. The amplifier, it takes pedals well, so manipulating the sound is simple enough to do. So to sum it up, for me, it's an amplifier with a distinctive tone that I'll certainly be using in my recording work. And if you're someone who likes tonal choices for different projects using real amplifiers, then Vox is definitely an amplifier that you should at least try out. So that's it. As mentioned, I'll be looking at how all the gear I use, it all integrates together in a control setup, enabling me to be productive in my small recording studio. I'll be doing some more speaker tests because I've just recently had some delivered. One in particular I think it will be a bit of a surprise to those of you who watch the channel, so stay tuned. Once again, if you like the videos, please do think about subscribing, hit the bell to get notifications, like, share and so on. It really does help the channel out. So do check out my channel playlists, where you'll find my guitar video series, which covers my journey back to playing and recording guitar after a 40-year break. So lots of stuff on guitars, amplifiers, pedals, and my ongoing recording journey. Again, a big thank you to all who do take the time to comment below or engage with me privately for a chat. I always take time to engage with folks who take time to comment. So until next time, the journey continues. Do take care.